we have got Michael Messner here. Now, he is famous around this country for photography in the out of doors. If you've ever seen a Hallmark calendar, you've seen this guy's work. He's also done the Grand River Country Trails book that focuses on the Grand River area, and he does beautiful personal photography as well. We're going to be chatting with him. Our next guest is a photographic artist who's been creating beautiful work for over 30 years right here in Kitchener. I know all of our viewers have seen some of his work because it appears on Hallmark calendars as well. He's a great artist, and it's a pleasure to have him on the show. His name's Michael Messner. Michael, it's great to have you here.
Thanks very much. I'm glad to hear that.
Now, on the summertime shows, we've been dealing with a lot of things out of doors because it is the summer, and I know that you spend a tremendous amount of time outside all across the nation, not just here in this region, but all across this beautiful nation of ours, commemorating it with some lovely photography. What inspired you to go that way with landscape photography?
Well, when I was studying photography in the early years, I studied at Conestoga College with Corinne Daconis and Velu Makima and Hans Bussy, and I studied the work of Ansel Adams, and he was one of my great mentors. I really loved to study his work, and I wanted to pursue that type of photography, but in color. I preferred to use color, as Ansel's work was mostly in black and white, and I wanted to try and bring the zone system and a lot of his techniques into color photography, using large format film and doing my own processing and keeping control of the process from start to finish so that I could basically measure the light of the scene and get everything I could onto the film so that I'd get the tonal range, the bright whites and the deep shadows, and try and get brilliant colors, and that's what I tried to do. And when I was working in Newfoundland, I realized that the fishery was going to be gone. Their way of life was changing so drastically, and a lot of the docks and a lot of the villages and things were going to be gone, and that's happened now. The fishery's pretty well dead in Newfoundland, and a lot of the places. The last time I was there photographing one of the docks that I photographed first in '71, it used to be a beautiful wooden dock. It was very rustic, made out of branches, trees, and rough lumber, and now it's all cement and iron, and it doesn't look anything like it did, you know. So I think it's very good that I got that both in black and white and in color, and I'll be able to pass that on to future generations. It's sort of a historic thing.
Well, that's the great thing about photographic art, is it preserves the moment, and it can never be recaptured again. It's never quite the same. I know we have some examples of your work that we'd like to put up on the screen, and if you could walk us through them, it'd be a great benefit. Now, this must be from Newfoundland.
It must be, but it's not. That's Peggy's Cove in Nova Scotia, I believe.
Beautiful.
And those are some of the old fishing sheds and a couple boats. I'm sure this is one of the Hallmark calendar shots, and it's Peggy's Cove. I photographed that on 4x5 transparency. So then the transparency is actually 4 inches by 5 inches, and I use a spot meter when I take the pictures to measure maybe the white of a cloud or the brightest white in the scene when you're doing a transparency, because you don't want the whites to wash out. So you measure the white and then drop the exposure 2.5 stops back from what you're reading there.
Well, you mentioned the white, but just looking at that photograph, when I see the old York boat lying up on the rocks, it almost looks like dinosaur bones. Like it's very white and bleached out.
Really, yeah.
And it's quite reminiscent.
Well, I was watching a program earlier on diving, and I've done some scuba diving and the wreck diving, and that I've always found the wreck boats very unusual and mystical underwater. You know, I found that to be something interesting.
Well, let's take a look at another photo.
Okay, this is Percé and along the Gas Bay, and this is a tremendous hill to climb. I remember I was having a bit of a challenge coming up that hill and stopping there because we were parked on the hill in order to get the shot of the village and the Pierce Rock there.
That's beautiful. Well, I know you've had many adventures all over the country, haven't you? You traveled about in your Volvo.
Yeah, I've got 480,000 or 490,000 clicks on my Volvo right now, and it's still treating me pretty good. We went once on a 34-day camping trip up to Alaska, and in the Yukon we were in Kluane Game Park, and I was 6 feet away from a grizzly bear, and I got a head and shoulders portrait of him with my 135mm lens.
Oh, terrific.
It was a real wake-up call, I'll tell you.
Well, let's take a look at another one of Michael's photos.
Now this is in Port Franks. I was on another yacht just like this one. Actually, this photograph has somehow gotten inverted because the boat should be going the other direction, but that doesn't really matter. I was on the deck of another yacht exactly like that one, shooting with a 50mm f1.0 lens at 15th of a second. That's a Kodachrome transparency. And what I've done with that is projected the transparency onto architectural vellum and then rephotographed it through pin glass, which is like the kind of glass you would put in a washroom or somewhere to obscure vision. And by adjusting the distance between the pin glass and the vellum, that's what gives the effect, the sort of pointillism that's there.
And it has a beautiful watercolor effect to it.
I really enjoy it. It's sort of a Monet kind of thing.
Well, we've got one more photo to look at. Let's take a peek at that.
Well, this is the cover of the trail guide. Now, this was the best fall that we had in 88 years, and I took pictures in Algonquin Park, in Maine, Vermont, and Ricker Park, and the best photograph I got was a couple miles from my house, which was absolutely the best fall. I heard on the news that it was the most colorful fall in 88 years because of the dryness that we experienced that year.
Well, that's just off the Grand River, isn't it?
It is.
And so I guess just off the Blair Road by the Grand River?
Yeah.
That's what I'm guessing.
Well, I went down Wilson Avenue. It's right at the end of Wilson Avenue where it stops in the middle of the park, and it's overlooking the river there.
Well, Michael, I know your photographs celebrate the out-of-doors, and they're available for people to use as photo decor. I know a lot of corporations and whatnot are using the photo in our nation's beauty, but individuals as well, and you always recommend that to people.
Yeah, I like to preserve the family's history. You know, it's nice to have pictures of our ancestors and to pass along to future generations so that we can preserve our memories from today for future generations. When someone passes away in our family, it's hard to remember even after 6 months or a year, so it's nice to have a photograph. It brings a tremendous comfort to people in the future.
Well, it's a terrific way to celebrate someone's life who's very close to you, or to get some of your photo decor work to celebrate this beautiful nation of ours. And I congratulate you on that, Michael. It's excellent work.
Thanks very much.
Well, it was a pleasure having you on the show. I know a lot of you will be interested in contacting Michael. Please do so by dialing the following number that you see right on the screen. It is, of course, 579-1683, or you can visit Michael Messner on the web at www.artistic-photo, what is that thing? Photo-.com.